Hey there, welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. It's January 25th, late January. Let's have our monthly garden tour. Well, here in Zone 9A on the Texas coast, we can grow a garden year-round, usually. Sometimes we have a nasty freeze like last year that zaps your garden, but for the most part, you can grow crops if you select winter hardy crops to put in October, mid-October, and they'll carry you through December and January and sometimes well into the spring. So let's take a look around and see what I've got growing here. If you've watched my previous videos, you know this has been an epic year for failure, pests, and pestilence, and weather weirdness, and the garden is very ugly, but that's okay. I've got a lot of good things going on, and I'm really happy with the fruits that I'm getting from my efforts. And today I'm even going to harvest some cabbage and look around and show you what's going on. So let's go. So right here in my little 2x6 raised bed, my garlic's still doing great. The cold weather's kind of telling that garlic to stop growing, and some of these yellowing leaves here are becoming more typical, and I expect that this will all just die back if we get some more cold weather. But the bulbs down in there are going to stay snug and firm under this soil, and in the spring they'll come right back up, and we'll be able to harvest some garlic in the summer. My dill's looking great. It does have a little frost damage here and there, but I mean, I've harvested off of this dill twice, 2 big harvests, and it continues to give me all this lush growth. So you can grow herbs in the middle of the winter. That's encouraging right there. This plant right here is called borage. Borage is an herb. It can be used medicinally, but it's primarily a wonderful pollinator attractor. If you've got bees in the area, they're going to love this. I had a whole bunch of it here last year, and this is self-seeded. It's growing outside of my garden bed actually, and I hope that it will self-seed itself again and give me some more of this wonderful herb. So yeah, I like this little plant. Again, most everything in my garden right now is frost damaged just a little bit, but the new growth that's coming on is very lush. It loves this weather so long as it doesn't freeze. So hopefully this big flower head right here will give us some seeds and drop them right here, and we'll continue to grow borage. I like that. That's a good looking plant. Carrots are looking great. Carrots are one of my favorite crops to grow. They're very slow for me. I plant these in the first half of October, and I begin harvesting them. Usually I can harvest a few little ones about now, the end of January, but it's going to be the end of February and well into the spring before I get real big bulky carrots out of my beds. That just seems to be the way they grow for me. So they're doing well, they're real healthy. This is one of the things I really love, is just to see the carrots blowing in the wind like seaweed, or a big mat of wheat and grain, you know, blowing in the wind. I love carrots and I love their foliage. It's one of the greatest things to grow. I have 3 kinds here. I've got an orange, a yellow, and a purple. I forgot the varieties. I'd have to go look at my seed packets. But we love those colorful carrots. They're really wonderful to cook with. And my wife and I are both convinced that homegrown carrots are far better than the ones you can buy in the store. All right, I've got my cabbage here. It's ready to be harvested, all headed up, nice and tight. And this makes me happy. I love cabbage. The unusual thing this year, as you can see, these leaves look like they're compromised. And they were frost damaged. And that's unusual for cabbage, because cabbage is a frost hardy plant. Hello, Phoebe. How you doing? But what happened, as I've said in previous videos, is we had such a warm winter. Fall and winter were so warm. In fact, it was hot most of the time, that the cabbage didn't have the ability to gradually acclimatize itself to cold weather. And so when winter finally showed up, it was just boom. All of a sudden it was freezing. And many of my cold hardy plants got frost damage. And that's why the garden, one of the reasons why the garden looks so bad this year. But you can see these cabbages wanted to pull through. They're troopers. The head of the cabbage there is ready to harvest. So I'm going to take one out now. In fact, I'm going to take the least good looking one out. This cabbage is a problem cabbage. I believe there are cabbage looper worms in here, and you can see there's a lot of damage from frost and pests. This is the worst looking. We're going to see what we can get out of here anyway. We're going to pull this right up, twist it off at the ground. I'm going to look around and see if we have any pests down in there. Here comes Phoebe. She loves cabbage. What I'll do is I'll just cut this cabbage off right here at the stem. No cabbage for you. Alright, so we've got a head of cabbage with a lot of frost damaged leaves on the outside. I believe we're going to find some cabbage worms in here, but let's see together. Yeah, there's a lot of ugliness in here. The thing about cabbage is if you just keep peeling, you usually get to something usable. And here we are, we're getting down to it. Alright, there is cabbage worm damage right here. But like I said, we'll just keep peeling. And we got ourselves a clean head of cabbage. No. My dog, she loves to eat this brassica stuff. I caught her one time. She had eaten a whole head of cabbage right out of the ground there. All right, so that's clean enough. We'll take it in the kitchen and clean up the rest of it, and well, we're good to go. I love growing cabbage. It's very rewarding. Look here next to my cabbage. My broccoli that I harvested from, this was a terribly conditioned plant. We harvested this one. It was the best of them. It's given me 2 more heads now. You can see back in there right there. It's going to give me 2 little small florets, I guess you call them. At least 2. Well, that's good. I'm glad I left that plant there. In my second bed here, I've got a lot of different greens and Asian crops. This is tatsoi right here, and it was frost damaged. You can see there's a lot of leaves here, frost damaged. And when they get compromised by frost, they tend to attract other kind of pests. But the new growth is coming up very beautifully. And I'll show you this plant here. We'll just pull the whole thing out. What we have here is a nice lush green. It's very much like bok choy. And you can use this in stir fry. But look how dark and green that is in there. That's beautiful. So we've got some Asian greens here we can put aside and cook. So I'll lay those right there, come back and get them. I also have been growing some daikon radishes. I've got 2 different varieties here, and they're ready to harvest as well. I've got the smaller one, which for a radish, of course, that's not small. But daikon radishes are actually a superfood, and they're very delicious. They're not as pungent, usually. They're not as pungent as a traditional radish. You can eat the greens, and they're popular in all Asian cooking, but Korean cooking especially makes use of daikon radishes in dishes like kimchi, fermented dishes. You can pickle these, you can make a soup base with these. Yeah, daikon radishes. These are, I don't remember the variety, but I'll put it on the screen there. These are smaller ones. I've got some big monsters too. Let's go look at those. Look at these beasts. Look at that. Daikon radishes also do a good job at breaking up clay soil because they go down so deep with that taproot. And they're huge. Pull this guy out. There's what we got. This daikon radish has gone down 12 inches, maybe 14 inches. And all those roots are down there in that clay working to break it up. So you can eat these greens as well if you want to. I don't like them so much, but I do love a daikon radish. So I'm going to harvest a couple of these today. There's that one. Let's get this one too. Oh, that one's not quite as big, but impressive, huh? All right. These are delicious in kimchi, and that's probably what I'm going to make some kimchi with these. And what I'm left with down here is a pretty deep hole down into my soil. So help to break up some of this soil. Beneath my topsoil here in my garden, I've actually got some black gumbo clay. As we've had to turn this bed up this past year to get rid of some nutsedge, we brought up a lot of that clay. So that's encouraging to see that. All right, daikon radishes. Got a little volunteer tatsoi growing there in my path. That's nice. Next to my daikons, I've got my celery, and I think it's getting about time to bind up our celery and blanch it so that these bunches will be together and upright like that. And these stalks down here will be white and not just dark green, because the darker green, the more bitter the celery is going to be. So what we'll do is we'll just tie these up. There's 12 of them out here. They're just about size. They're just about the size that I think I could start eating off them. But yeah, I want to blanch them and try to get that done. And hopefully in the next 3 weeks while these are blanching, we won't get any more frost, because there's a little bit of frost damage on these leaves. Just a tad, just a little bit. And I want these stalks to be nice and white. So I'm estimating we're about 3 weeks out from harvest. We need to tie these up. We'll have a video on that coming up when I get this done. But yeah, celery, man. I've never grown celery this well. I grew it when I was a kid and didn't have much success, but wow, this is encouraging to see. So next to the celery, we have our collard greens, and you can see the frost damage in the collard greens was pretty severe on some of those older leaves. That's when that frost came, and these were not accustomed. They are cold hardy generally, and you can see all the new growth that has come in since that first freeze is handling the freezes just fine. So all this new growth in here will give us some wonderful collard greens, and yeah, just a little bit of collard greens, man. Good stuff. Let's move over here. These are my kohlrabies. Kohlrabi's doing good. Starting to bulk up down there in the roots. Down here we're going to have these purple kohlrabies, and I'm looking forward to this. These look real healthy. Got a little bit of damage, and like everything in the garden, a little bit of frost damage is what we're going to expect, but those kohlrabies are the best looking crop in this bed. Right next to them, if you watch my last video, this is my rutabagas, and you can see they're in horrible shape, and that's because they're covered in aphids. Aphids, man. If I flip this leaf over, there they are down in there. Look at all those aphids. Colonies of them. It's just disgusting. What I noticed, though, since we had a freeze, I've been seeing dead aphids laying on the top of the leaves and stuff. So anyway, we're going to use this as a trap crop to keep the aphids here, just because I want to see if the freeze that we have, any freezing weather, I want to see if it really kills them. If it doesn't kill them, I'll come in and I'll spray these, and we may or may not get rutabagas. Who knows? But they're staying here. They like the rutabagas. They don't like the kohlrabi, and they don't like these radishes over here. This is a Japanese 100-pound radish that they haven't started bulking up yet, but the cold weather's really made these leaves look beautiful in deep dark green. Beautiful plants. My peas are putting on pods over here. If you remember, we made this little string trellis just to get them started and get them off the ground a little bit. We had a huge windstorm that knocked them down, and they flopped over on themselves, but they're still growing, crawling along the ground, and putting on these beautiful snow peas. I love to eat these. They almost remind me of peanut butter. They've got that leguminous flavor. Yeah, good stuff. Got myself a repair project going on. Got to replace the back wheels on my gorilla cart. And when I pulled my one of the original wheels off, one of the bearings stayed on the shaft. And I banged on that and worked on that. Got a puller on. I can't get it off, so I'm going to have to get the grinder and cut that off. But other than that, it's really easy to replace the wheels on these gorilla carts. This gorilla cart has served me for 8 years, and all 8 years been right out here in the weather. Wonderful cart. I'll never have a wheelbarrow again. I love these things. I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again because I'm just tickled pink, man. Look at this. This is a ginger plant. My neighbor gave me this ginger plant in exchange for some of those daikon radishes, and so I planted it here. I had a bare spot. Technically, it wasn't bare. There were some seeds growing up in there, but yeah, I kind of scratched them out and put that ginger there. This is my herb bed, and in the herb bed we have some spring onions still growing. Man, those things are troopers. Rosemary, can't stop it, man. Can't stop growing that stuff. It's delicious, wonderful. If you don't grow rosemary, you're missing out. I've got some thyme down here. I forgot what that is. I'd have to look at the label, but I think it's marjoram. And in the back over there, I've got some oregano growing. So lots of fresh herbs here, and they've just grown through the year. This bed is a real success for me. Things die out in the summer, but they come right back from the roots when the weather cools off, and that's a success. Other than these things that I've shown you today, there's not much else going on in the garden. All the fig trees are starting to shut down finally. After a warm year, they were very confused. They were fruiting in December, some of them. So they're real ugly. I haven't been able to tend to them or prune them this year because they wouldn't go to dormant. And half the year I was waiting to see if they were going to survive the freeze, and it took them until summer to put on leaves. Got weeds in the containers you need to deal with. Yeah, real ugly part of the garden right here. But hey, you know, everything's healthy, everything's growing, and we'll be able to come back in the spring when these are just about to break bud, give them their cleanup that they so desperately need, prune them back a bit, and get all the dead wood off, and they'll pop right back. Figs are amazing. They'll grow feet per year. And we'll do a good weeding of all these beds, or all these containers here. We'll take all the weeds out and refresh them. Yeah, it's going to be a good spring for these figs, I think. And that's the condition of all the figs, actually. You can see here my citrus. This one is the one that had all those oranges on it. We took them in during the freeze, and they're back out enjoying the weather. The other side of the yard's got these raised beds. This one in a trough back there. These are the onions. They're doing great. I mean, there's not much to see. They're growing. They're about twice the size they were when I put them in, and I'm real happy. I love growing onions. I want to be able to make some salsa in the summer. I want to harvest the garlic from my garden in the summer, onions in my garden from the summer. I'll have tomatoes on hand that I'll be growing. I'll have peppers that I'm growing. I'll have some cilantro frozen in the freezer that I have grown, and I'll be able to make a good salsa. That's one of my goals. I think most backyard gardeners down in the south here, at least in Texas, where we love Tex-Mex food, we like to make salsa, so got to have onions for that. Goji berries growing like crazy, needs to be pruned this winter. I'm actually thinking I'm going to move this. Goji berries started out in that pot down there, and they have grown out the bottom. So good permanent home here. If I prune this back and trim it, more goji berries will likely come up from the roots that are in the ground. I can make cuttings from this and pot some in larger pots, but yeah, the goji berry just loves it right there. Blackberries are doing fine over here. These are a thornless blackberry. They're looking a little dark. I think it's a natural winter coloration. And I've got strawberries down on the sides here. This is the one that I kind of knocked back with too much orange oil treatment for the ants that were in here. But it's growing, and it looks like it's recovered quite nicely. Over here I've got another one here. You folks have told me that the reddish coloration on these strawberry leaves is natural for this time of year, so I'm not going to worry about it. This is a nice bushing habit for a blackberry plant. Normally they sprawl all over the place and grow, 30 feet long, and you gotta trim them up. But this one's got a real nice bushing habit. I probably will not have to do anything to this plant on its first year in this pot. In fact, I'm expecting fruit because these blackberries fruit on second year growth. And well, that's what we're gonna have. Exciting. I have this little nectarine tree that I thought had died in the gigantic freeze, but it put on new growth. We had trimmed it back all the way to here. We left this, and this. We left 4 main branches on here. It looked like a little goblet. It was only this tall. We chopped it down. Look at all the growth it put on, even in a compromised year. Now that all the leaves have dropped off, with the exception of these little end buds here, we can take an evaluation of this tree real easy. We can see what's going on. We can prune that up for backyard orchard culture, and that's going to be the perfect demo tree come the spring, or come the late winter when it's time to prune this. To show you guys how I'm going to keep it about 4 to 5 feet tall, and how we're going to prune it for an open center. Yeah, that's going to be a good tree. Muscadines are going to sleep finally, and you can see when they drop their leaves, you can follow that thick vine that wraps around the wire there. That's the main growing vine, and I cut them every year at the post. You can see that's where they stop, and then I cut all these spurs down to literally that tall. Once I prune this year, there will be nothing here but this main vine and some short little spurs like that. All that mess you see is one season's growth. So when they finally drop their leaves, and when it's good and dormant, you can get out here and you can prune these things back. And this is going to need some some good pruning this year because, well, it's starting to get beyond, these little fruit spurs are starting to get beyond the length I want them. So I'll probably take this back a little more, sacrifice a little bit of fruit quantity for long-term fruit production. I'll show you how to prune muscadines if you have muscadines in my muscadine playlist. Got several videos there of how we started this little micro vineyard. 50 pounds of fruit off of this year. This is my red flame cayenne, or what's left of it. This was a very heavy producer this year, and I'm trying to get some of these weeds out here so they don't drop seeds, and we can reuse this pot next year. But this plant wasn't a very large plant, as you can see, and it produced well into last month. Some of these peppers didn't get quite ripe, but you can see they're much smaller in the winter, the peppers, the chilies that grow on this. But man, this was a producer for me, and I'm sad to see it go. It's not going to make it into next year. It's dead, even way down here. It got stunted by the freeze. But I have seeds started for this variety. Since it was such a wonderful producer, I'm going to grow another couple of plants. Yeah, wonderful. All right, well, there we go. It's a pretty good harvest, huh? I mean, just 4 items, but they're large. Yeah, this represents many meals. So, winter time. Winter gardening in Zone 9A, you can grow food. You don't have to take time off. You don't have to think that you can't grow through the winter. Sometimes it's risky. And, well, in weird years like this year, sometimes it's difficult. But we did it. We got some things, and we're still having a harvest. Things are still growing. Things are still coming in. We're going to be able to harvest throughout the winter. Hey, if you're interested in spring gardening, please subscribe. We've started our seeds for spring. They're already coming up a little bit. We're going to have all kinds of wonderful things growing in this garden in spring. I'll show you how to prepare your beds and get things ready for spring. And I'll show you how to plant and tend and grow your garden. A little backyard garden, man. If you want one, it's not that hard. Follow me, subscribe, and we'll grow together. So, hey, if you're also looking for some seeds for your garden, seedsforgenerations.com. Seeds for Generations is a family-run business. They have a good selection of seeds. Their seeds are high quality. Some of those things out there right now, in fact, those collard greens are from Seeds for Generations. Give them a try. By using the link in my description down there, you'll be supporting our channel here at Black Gumbo. So, I also want to give you a Phoebe update. Phoebe, my dog, the official doggo of Black Gumbo. She goes the day after tomorrow to the specialist. She's torn an ACL. She's got a knee problem. And the problem with corgis is they will compensate with the other leg, and they'll blow that one out too, and then you'll have to get them a set of wheels. We don't want to do that. So we're going to go see how much money it's going to cost to have our dog some surgery. I can't believe I'm saying that. Normally I say that you know, we have a spending limit on dogs. She's a dog, but she's a beloved dog. She's my dog, so we're going to take care of her. There's an update. Hey, thanks for joining us on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Until I see you next time, happy gardening to you. May your harvest be big. Bye-bye.